you believe that every immigrant here is the same? You can't believe that because they're not. How do you differentiate if nobody gets a hearing, if you don't have due process? How do you distinguish one from the other?
Do you believe that undocumented immigrants have to have due process rights?
Let's hop into a rather contentious CNN panel debate about the importance of valuing the Constitution and how MAGA no longer does that. So take a moment if you can, leave a like on the video, it helps us out a ton, and we'll be back with the fact checks for Scott Jennings and the context needed.
But why is that unusual that there's a process to go through to deport people? I mean, that's actually just how the system works.
Do you know how long it takes for this process, this paperwork to get people out? The guy that we've all been weeping and gnashing teeth over, the guy we sent to El Salvador, was in the country 14 years illegally.
But what about what
We've
Dante's...
got millions of people who have gamed this system,
and
now we're going to game
Either
it
you
some more.
believe in the Constitution or you don't.
I believe in the sovereignty of the United States, or you don't.
But
So you don't believe in the
believe in the
Constitution?
I believe in the sovereignty of the United
So you
States,
don't
and I
believe in the
believe, and I believe we've
And
been
you don't
invaded.
believe that Donald
Can I
Trump
just ask a
should
question?
abide by the Constitution?
Just a serious question.
Of course I do. And of course I believe.
Do you believe that he does?
And I believe that he will follow, just as he said, what the Supreme Court says. But the policy debate is worth having.
From the very beginning,
millions
Trump,
upon millions of people are here, and they will not leave, and he has to get them out.
always
I agree with you with
believed
that, Scott.
in executive
Hold on a
overreach.
second. Let me
Always,
just let her
always.
We have millions of undocumented people here and we don't know who they are, and that's a problem because we want to know who they are, especially if we think they're draining our resources with handouts and aren't able to work or pay taxes. Then why wouldn't we just offer mass amnesty to all the non-violent, criminal, undocumented immigrants? It would solve all of these problems. It would turn them from a liability in their eyes, which is it's missing a bit of the truth, but it would turn them into taxpayers. It would give them more incentive to come forward and identify themselves than mass deportation would, which they would just go into hiding from, all while being cheaper than mass deportations. As deportation flights average around $14,000 an individual. This is why we're talking like 80s, hundreds, 90s, hundreds, billions of dollars. MAGA's problem, and what keeps true progress from being made on the issue of the border, is that conservatives only see it through the racist lens of removing the brown foreigners, which again inhibits the asylum, the visa system, the problems that actually exist in our system getting addressed.
Are you saying now that you don't believe that he believes in executive overreach?
I believe that he believes his mandate from the American people is to solve illegal immigration. And I would ask you the same question in reverse. Did Joe Biden, when he said he would faithfully uphold and execute the laws of this land, not mean it when he decided to let millions upon millions of people into the country? Because he did not execute the laws.
I thought that you were going to squirm out of that question.
I'm not squirming.
Yes, you did. And that's why I prepared for it, because I want to read you something. At the core of Trump's candidacy is a call for greater executive authority with willful disregard for the constitutional limits placed on our chief executive. Trump especially promises to force individual companies to do things he wants them to do, or else he promises punishment to those who displease him, which appeals to the miserable man at the airport bar. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, I wrote it.
Exactly.
And here's
so
the deal.
He hasn't
And
changed, so
the
what has changed about you?
And here's the difference between then and now. This country has been invaded. The president was elected
So
to
you
end the
changed your
invasion.
opinion on the Constitution?
My opinion is the president needs to pull every lever he can.
No, it is actually exactly that. His opinion on the Constitution has changed, not just his, but his entire party's. He values Trump over it, as do many Republicans. They were so willing, almost shockingly willing, to toss aside any moral or ethical compass they pretended to have in the pursuit of raw power following Trump, who his whole stick is executive overreach. Like, especially this time around. Even last time around, though, he's going at journalists for gag orders. He literally tried to circumvent a free and fair election. I mean, he's very authoritarian, clearly is a fascist, and he wants to rule this country like a dictator, and said as much. He's called for the termination of the Constitution publicly, and he's now willing to ignore it and the courts. But we're still having the conversation about it. I don't know if he does or not. The saddest part of it all is that he didn't hide the fact that he would do any of this. And 77 million people, over 77 million people, were willing to let him into office and try because maybe their pocketbooks will be fatter, which has been proved utterly untrue as well as Trump crashes the economy and sends us barreling towards recession.
Do you believe that every immigrant here is the same? You can't believe that because they're not. They're not.
I do.
There's some good, there's some bad. There's some criminal,
I
they're
believe,
not.
I believe
And
everybody
how do you-
who's here illegally is
hear
here
this out.
illegally.
How do
Not
you
all are
differentiate?
violent, but all are here illegally.
But how do you differentiate if nobody gets a hearing, if you don't have due process? How do you distinguish one from the other?
Well,
so what you're saying is every person that's here in this country is a criminal, is a gang member, should be thrown in jail.
Every person who's
That's
here
what's
illegally,
happening.
every person who is here illegally is in fact a criminal. Some of them do come here and commit violent crimes
Some of
and
them,
still
but how do you
aren't
differentiate
deported.
if you don't have a
Well,
process?
some have records and some don't.
But they
I'm
still
here to
have
break the news.
constitutional rights.
They're
Hold
all
on,
going
hold on a
away.
second.
Still have constitutional
I want to make
rights.
sure that we're not straying from the point of this conversation, which is a question about due process rights. And so I'll just ask really quickly, do you believe that undocumented immigrants have to have due process rights, that that's constitutionally what they are entitled to?
I'm unsure of what that means in the context of some of the cases that we've been dealing with in the news lately.
He's unsure of what? The Boston bomber literally got due process. The idea that some people don't get it is insane. I can't get over the fact that these clowns legitimately think the Constitution should apply to a one-cell organism at the moment of conception, but not to a living, breathing human who doesn't have proper documentation, even though the Constitution is explicit in it applying to all persons. And the undocumented immigrant is a person and the fetus isn't. But to say all immigrants are the same is another level of wildly ignorant that is almost shockingly so. There's plenty of undocumented immigrants who are undocumented because of a failure of our system, not theirs, not their actions. There's undocumented immigrants who expected to pay trillions over the next decade in taxes under the table, who never commit crimes, right? They add both to our tax base and to our consumer base, which has both multiplicative effects in redistributing wealth. It's cash velocity. Maybe look it up for those who want to learn about economics. But to deport these people, would you pull back from that cash velocity and leave a massive hole in our economy that I personally don't trust Trump to fill in the slightest?